All right. Politics is such a seductive drug. Today's Dregs of Wisdom is about the drug of politics and a magic trick to cultivate compassion while you're dealing with it. So, consumption of politics leads to hatred, fear, panic, and disempowerment. It is intoxicating to watch the battle between the two teams, the constant breaking news. It's like watching sports or a movie, ridiculing and demonizing the other side, wanting desperately for your side to win, keeping up with the latest on Trump indictments or the Hunter Biden shenanigans or the multiple wars now that are going on. All the while, your internal fear and anxiety is ratcheting up. And the sense that the world is moving towards a breaking point seems to be getting stronger and stronger. You may notice that you're feeling less resilient. Maybe you're quicker to anger, quicker to anxiety, even about things unrelated to politics. It is so intoxicating that many people leave their TVs on with the cable news in the background all day and constantly check their X or Twitter feeds for the latest updates, like an addict trying to get their fix. I mean, anywhere you go in public, if you're in an airport, if you're in a sports bar, you're going to see the news on a channel. Now, I'm no stranger to this trap of cable news and social media addiction. And I find personally that it makes me less productive, less happy, and frankly, more anxious. But today, I found a secret technique to kind of counter the negative effects of cable news. And I want to share that with you. So let me tell you what happened. I was on a visit to my parents' house this week, and I sat down at their kitchen table to do some writing, literally to write this piece that I'm speaking to you now. And the kitchen TV was on, of course, and it was turned on to the news. So I popped in my little earbuds with noise cancellation technology, and I started blasting a mix from Spotify so that I wouldn't, be distracted by the voice of the news. And, this is nothing new or special. I'm sure other people have done this before, but then something unexpected happened. So first you have to understand the mix I was listening to was kind of an eclectic, somber singer-songwriter mix. I'll put the mix in the show notes so you can listen to it, but think like Ray LaMontagne, Bridge Over Troubled Water, Bon Iver, Sarah Bareilles, Iron and Wine, kind of like real singer-songwriter somber. And I occasionally looked up from my laptop, while I'm writing at the people on the news while listening to this somber, beautiful acoustic music. And I was struck by this image I saw of Mark Meadows and his specific smile just in a moment, because I couldn't hear his voice. I had no idea what they were talking about. I just saw a picture of Mark Meadows, his name, and the smile that he gave. And I kind of saw a younger cousin of mine in that smile. And I started then imagining Mark Meadows as a little boy. And when I imagined him as a little boy, I felt this odd sense of sonder, like that every person, all of these people in the news and everyone that would come up, I would start see their lips moving and I would start imagining them as little children. And when you imagine people as children and you're just looking at their body language, you're not hearing the words, you're not hearing the divisiveness, that I'm right, you're wrong, or whatever it is that's coming out of their mouth, then you start to see that beneath all of this kind of fighting that everyone's doing, deep down, there is this inner child that's still just trying to make sense of the world. And everyone started looking so beautiful to me. Like all these newscasters, a lot of people on the news are older, I would say. At least this particular newscast that was being watched was, a lot of older folks and, over 65, but they looked so beautiful to me because I was seeing them as if they were children. And everyone kind of seemed so innocent. And I was just struck by a deep sense of compassion in that moment, that every one of them, they just seemed like children with unmet needs. And, this insight, it doesn't necessarily change my political views, right? But it does allow me to hold on to a sense of compassion and wisdom as I see others who maybe disagree with me. And, others that are, not necessarily political friends or enemies, but just human beings trying to figure life out. I think this is the key insight that a lot of people are missing. We start to see the other side as literally like demons, or literally like people who we can't understand. We can't see the common humanity in them. And I think the insight I had is that every once in a while, you have to turn off the words that you're hearing and just look at the body language and see deeper into people. I believe that when people are feeling angry, scared, and disempowered, they just want to follow the leaders of their team, blindly. But when people maintain a sense of compassion and personal autonomy, then they can see the humanity in others and make decisions from a place of wisdom. So you can call for sanity when the leaders of their teams go too far. And this gets to an idea, a wisdom that was first put forth, I believe, by Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'm sure this is a perennial wisdom, so I'm sure that someone else has said this in some other way throughout history. Probably goes back to the Stoics. But he described it as understanding the difference between your circle of influence and your circle of interest. So the big problem comes when we consume news and political opinions like addicts, right? Our attention gets focused on the issues that are, for all intents and purposes, completely out of our control, right? So when you focus your energy and attention on things you can't control, like geopolitics, celebrity gossip, thoughts and feelings and beliefs of other people, then naturally you're going to feel disempowered. You're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel anxious and scared because you can't control any of this stuff that you're so interested in. And it's human nature to get anxious when focusing on things that are out of our control. But when you focus on things that you can influence, i.e., what's right in front of you, like your breath, your actions, your thoughts, cleaning your house, doing your job, your career, pursuing mastery of those things, right? When you pursue mastery of the things that are actually right in front of you, then naturally you feel a sense of calmness and empowerment because you actually have agency to affect change in those areas of your life. And so this is why, having a yoga practice or having some kind of spiritual practice, even if it's nothing to do with yoga, if it's just cleaning your room, doing something that gives you a sense of empowerment, focusing on your circle of influence, not just your circle of interest. This is a basic law of human nature. Your anxiety and fear, I would say, are directly related to how much of your attention is focused on things that you perceive as beyond your sphere of influence, right? People with generalized anxiety often feel that life itself is constantly out of their control. During a panic attack, one feels they're losing the ability to even breathe. That has got to be a very scary feeling, I imagine, because how you breathe, it's the most intimate thing that you can control. As I mentioned before, Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he used to say that one of the first principles of being proactive in life is to understand the difference between your circle of influence and your circle of concern or interest. And that successful people focus predominantly on their circle of influence and seldom on their circle of concern. In focusing on what you can influence and control, you would experience success, and thus your circle of influence, what you can influence in the world, would naturally grow. The problem is so many people are sitting in front of their TVs or sitting in front with their phone all day, staring and scrolling through things that they have no influence over. And so they're naturally feeling a ratcheting up of anger, frustration, etc. Like, I ask you, how much time of your day are you spending putting your awareness and attention onto things that you have no control over? I promise that if you downshifted that, if you downregulated the amount of time you gave to those endeavors, you'll feel less anxiety in your life. So this is why I really feel so strongly that people today should learn Taoist breathing techniques, really any breathing techniques. But I studied in the skills of Samje Taoist yoga, and this particular system is particularly good at grounding you in your belly. There's a lot of breathing practices out there that are popular nowadays. Like you might have heard of Wim Hof, the Iceman, this kind of holotropic breathing. It's like these big, powerful breaths. Or in yoga, there's a lot of like, inhale through one nose, nostril, and out through the other. And there's a lot of different breathings that, if I thought about where they're located in the body, they're much more located in your chest and your head. Whereas the Taoist breathing techniques are all about getting into your lower abdomen, getting down into your belly. And it's much more of a grounding practice that's good for reducing anxiety. And definitely in the links below in this video, we will have links to some free breathing practices you can do, the Taoist breathing practices. The daily practice of this kind of breath work can totally transform your relationship with reality, because it can keep peeling away the layers of fear and anxiety that are literally embedded in your nervous system. And you can just imagine those layers peeling away and peeling away and peeling away until you experience a peace that surpasseth understanding. And that is possible for everyone. And I think when you have that feeling in yourself, it makes you so strong that you then are okay to have your own thoughts about the way the world works. So, it's not easy to think for yourself in this world where there's so many different people kind of battling, in the information wars and the narrative wars. It's way easier to be part of a team and believe whatever that team believes. And there's safety in numbers, and knowing who's in your tribe and who isn't. And this is why there's so much tribalism, because it's easier to be in a tribe. But I've always believed that if you don't stop and get clear on what you really value, then you will end up following the tune of another's flute. You'll end up following your team off the bridge, if that's where they're going, without even realizing it. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is a wisdom text from ancient India, there's this teacher, Krishna, and he's talking to Arjuna, who is kind of Arjuna is you, the reader. Arjuna is a warrior in this particular story who's battling as part of a civil war, which rings true nowadays a lot. And Arjuna doesn't want to fight in this war. And he's really lost for what to do. And Krishna tells him, it is better to die doing your own dharma than to do the dharma or purpose or wishes of another well. And I really feel that so many people, and myself included in this in some ways, spend so much of their life doing the dharma or the purpose of what others wanted us to do, and not taking the time to relax our anxiety, relax and surrender, and get rid of all the tension that's built up, all the fear, and ask ourselves, what do I truly value? What do I believe? And you'll find if you do that, the people that I know that do that, they are typically not able to fully be on one team or another. Instead, they walk this middle path where they can see the humanity in everyone. And while it can sometimes feel like a lonely path, it's the only path where you can live in compassion for all beings. And also, it empowers you when you fully accept and you start to make decisions and say things based on what you really believe. It's extremely empowering and energizing. And it's the only way that I would want to live. And so, I think there are forces at play in our world right now that are already at war. And the cycles of violence will come and go, as they have really since in all of human history. And that's really because the incentive structures of our whole, planet, um, will eventually lead us to war. And I will want to do a whole other podcast actually on incentive structures, because I actually believe there's a different way that we could be on this planet as humans. I think there's a way that we can evolve as humans, to live in peace. But we're not there right now. And right now, it's really easy to get drawn into this war that's happening. Um, there are physical wars in places like Ukraine and Israel, and then there's political wars, and then there's inner wars. Um, and I would just argue that where the wisdom lies is the middle path. It's kind of not being on one side or the other. It's taking a step back and listening to your own truth. Um, and then from there, being able to communicate with anyone and have no enemy. So, hope this little dreg of wisdom was helpful for you all. It was for me. And thanks for listening today. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.